Okay, welcome all. This week for our discussion, we'll be discussing the topic of sexual harassment in the workplace in its varied forms um, so that we can understand it better. So, before we get going, does anybody have any questions about the readings or anything else this week?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
All right. So what we're wanting to understand more is just how sexual harassment involves the law, what laws there are that deal with sexual harassment in the workplace, the ethical dilemmas that are involved in it, competing interests, and and then being able to identify and formulate good elements um, of a successful sexual harassment policy, which is what we have to do for our doohickeys assignment. Just understand that so that I can write that up better. So, okay. So we read background from the Harvard um, Business School, just a few notes on sexual harassment. In there, so what is sexual harassment? How did they define sexual harassment? Anybody define that for us?
Well, we can start with the unwanted sexual advances.
Yeah,
That's a phrase that they used.
yeah, that's the most basic one, is unwanted sexual advancement. I thought it was interesting in the history how they spoke to um, the changing nature of it, how it used to be defined as women, and then it went to all sexes. Just that changing nature. Now, this was written in 2008. This Harvard Business School note. I imagine currently those are with the gender issues in the workplace. I imagine this is an ever-changing issue. You guys think so?
Yeah, I would think so. I also was thinking how it was broken up into the two, like, quid pro quo and hostile work environment.
How are those two different?
The quid pro quo was, it seemed like more straightforward. Like the example was like sleep with me or you're fired. It was like benefits or like demotions or whatever based on if you agree to or not. And then the hostile work environment seemed like it was more of like an ongoing thing and that you had to be able to have like sufficient evidence to show that it's been happening like long term.
Okay. So the next question refers to the story. Um, it says, based on Martinez's story, does her situation constitute sexual harassment? Um, Now, this refers to the Lone Star case, which was the other reading, where a gentleman overheard a conversation on the phone where Julia Martinez spoke about a superior of hers and his unwanted advances and the types of things, behavior he was engaging in. So, how does that constitute sexual harassment? Which part of that, or of those two things that you covered, which one is it?
I feel like it was all constituted as sexual harassment just because he was making advances on her by the um, descriptive wording that he used against her, and then he actually had some actions when she had told the person that she was talking to on the phone that he brushes up against her, and at one point he had stuck his hand through her shirt, and I like that. To me, that is definitely wrong, and I hope everybody else feels the same way. Like, there's no call for that. It's a bad move on his part, and it could get him in trouble and the company in trouble for sure.
Mm-hmm.
In reading through it, it didn't look like he asked for any quid pro quo. So I think this would definitely fall in the category of just a hostile work environment. Agree, disagree? Is there enough information to say?
I don't know if there's necessarily enough. Well, I agree with you on the sense of it as being hostile work environment, but I think she was afraid that she would get fired if she went any further with it. So I don't know. It's probably more of a hostile.
Yeah, his actions aren't necessarily quid pro quo from what we hear,
Yeah.
but she is afraid of retribution.
Well, absolutely. And I wonder if most of sexual harassment doesn't fall in that category, as the person on the receiving end feels that if they do anything that they'll lose their job or they won't, be up for promotion. I mean, so there has to be that a little bit of the thought that falls in the quid pro quo that, if I'm not allowing this, then I won't get, whatever's coming.
Uh-huh.
So they probably overlap a little bit.
I would say the quid pro quo has an explicit, like, do this,
Right.
or this is going to happen, or it's more explicit than just the fear. I think the fear is for both environments, for both types of harassment.
Absolutely, in the eyes of the law. Yeah, but in the eyes of the victim, there probably not much difference between those two. In the feelings of the victim is what I'm saying. So.
Oh yeah, I would agree that it's implied.
So when DaCosta, the gentleman that overheard this, he called legal advice, the company legal, just to get some advice. The advice he got, is it accurate?
Yeah, I think the advice they gave him was important. If you know of something, you have to report. Otherwise, like they were saying, they could be called up to be a witness or testify in court, and the company could get in trouble as well. So,
yeah, I think it's accurate, and mostly, but the fact that if she, if they do launch an investigation and she doesn't want to cooperate, then that could create problems for what's his bucket, and I can't remember his name, the guy that overheard him.
Yeah, DaCosta.
Thank you. And even possibly her. So, but I think it was accurate.
The question that's asked here is, it says follow up by asking who the lawyer said that he should report to. And so there's a difference, I think, that maybe we need to catch here is she said to report to the Equal Opportunity Office, the EEO. She said, you're required to call these people. I'll give you the number and they'll do the investigation.
Is that because on the other paper it said something about they have to file it internally first and then send it to the EEO, the Equal Employment Office? Is that it?
Yeah, I think that's what they're getting at, is that she never mentioned anything about, the lawyer never mentioned anything about reporting it to the state or the federal Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. So,
well, that's just giving them an opportunity to deal with the situation before it gets that far.
yeah. So I guess that's the question I have is he required by law to report it to the state commission, or is he only required by law to take it to the company, and then it's on the company's shoulders whether or not?
Well, I don't even think he's necessarily required by the law to report it to the company's EEO, but it's more of a protection for him than it is anything. Because if he knows something and it doesn't say anything, if it comes up later, then well, now it's on him.
Yeah.
As much as it is the harasser.
I have a question. So if it would be on him, would he have help in creating like that hostile environment? Like would he also be put to blame for that? Or is it just a matter of like ethics of whether like you had a chance of doing something but you didn't?
He's allowing it. So he's allowing a hostile environment. So I think he would be just as responsible for it, not doing anything.
Gotcha.
Yeah. All right. Any other comments or questions about that? The background of that?
No.
Okay. So again, just to reiterate, so what is his dilemma? What should he do? How would you evaluate his options at this point?
I think he's in a really hard spot because if she ever does come forward, then he's screwed. But where she's saying, no, don't do anything about it, she doesn't want to cooperate. He's screwed again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he needs to report it. Like Haley was saying, it covers himself in the future. Even if she decides not to cooperate, he's still reporting what he overheard and what he now knows, because he's now liable for what he knows.
And even if she doesn't want him to report it, like he is trying to protect her too. I'm sure he wouldn't want that to be happening to someone in his family.
Yeah.
Like that, and not be reported.
He could report it. But maybe make the EEO aware that she's not willing to cooperate.
Right.
Maybe how about like just reporting it with kind of internally and putting it under like anonymous? I don't know if that's a possibility for these sort of cases to be filed anonymously. That I could see that maybe working out that way, or at least kept in record without further being done until she says something. I'm not sure. Like just as long as something is noted that it happened on this date and he heard this and whatever.
Yeah.
That's what I was kind of getting at with, him reporting it and him saying she's not willing to cooperate. Don't.
But pass the buck to the company to decide what to do.
Well, I don't work in HR.
So how do you, if you're going to report it, how do you explain to Julia, Miss Martinez, how do you explain to her that you're reporting it?
I'm required to. Sorry. Wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah. Doing the right thing is never easy.
Maybe he could like talk to her about the transfers, because it seems that he knows that the transfers are really not going to be happening, and that there's actually cutting more positions, like more positions are being eliminated. So her chance of moving is like almost non-existent. So maybe he's able to explain that to her. She'll be more compliant to decide to file that claim.
Well, and on the other coin of that, or on the other side of that, I mean, if there's no hope for being fired or transferred, is this just going to make her life a living hell? I mean, Does this prevent her boss from firing her for any other reason? I mean, does filing the claim prevent her from ever being fired?
I think it would make it more difficult for them to fabricate something because it would look suspicious right after she filed the claim.
Yeah, that's true.
This
But
is
she's hoping to transfer away from him and be working for somebody else. So if she knows that that's not going to happen, like you said, she might be more willing to say, "Oh, if this is going to be my life for now, I really do need to stand up and have something change."
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, what specifically would you report to the office, to the EEO office? What specifically would you say to the office?
I report what I overheard. The phone call. Hopefully, I made some notes really quickly so I can remember what was said.
Yeah.
Well, then adding names to the EEO this time, like he called the lawyer person and he didn't mention any names. He kept it anonymous, and so he'd have to actually put in the names and exactly what he heard, and then maybe try to set up an appointment for Miss Martinez and have the EEO go through her, and then he would get involved a little bit more once they talk to her, so that he's not just being a mediator, get
Yeah.
himself in a fix that way too.
Really, as you read through this, I just went over it to verify. She never, as she's talking to her sister on the phone, she never actually mentions John French's name.
She said her boss, though.
Right. So,
And if she only has one boss, then
But that's an important distinction because he might be the boss of the group, but there might be other layers of authority there too.
But he did like kind of point to the guy's office, and he didn't say his name when Julia was in his office. But
so, anyways, it just says that in the notes, in the discussion notes here, that that DaCosta hasn't actually seen anything. He only heard a conversation, and she didn't even mention the alleged harasser's name. So, anyways, kind of interesting here. Anything else about this case that we haven't covered? Any other issues that we haven't covered here?
I feel like we've done pretty good on it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, the next thing it says to do for a few minutes is it says we're going to consider what to include in a company's sexual harassment policy. It says we have to assign everybody a role here. Okay. So I'm just going to go down the line from the left to the right on my screen. So, Haley, you'll be legal counsel. All right. Lala.
Yes. Sorry. Some more.
You'll be the bystander.
Okay.
Lucy, you're the accused harasser. And Michael, you're the potential victim of harassment. Okay? So in that role, what are the most important things that you would like to see in a sexual harassment policy? So I'll just give you 2 to 3 minutes and think of things in that role, either as a victim or an accused or a bystander or a legal counsel. What would you like to see spelled out in a sexual harassment policy? Okay, so take just a few minutes. Okay, has everybody had enough time?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Michael, as a victim of sexual harassment or being accused or accusing somebody, what types of things would you like to see in a policy?
Oh, well, I guess like what would my rights necessarily be, and where's my litigations? So I guess who would I be reporting to along with that, and just making sure the company doesn't have a policy against that, making sure their policy is up to date and in good standing with good ethics and the like. Also, whether or not I'd be losing my job if I were to report something and wouldn't go through. Like, she's in that predicament. She's worried that she'd lose her job because he might actually fire her because he can deny it. But
So you're just
yeah.
worried about backlash until all the facts come out?
Yeah, pretty much. That's all I came up with.
Okay. All right. Lucy, you're accused of doing things that are inappropriate. What types of things would you like to see in the policy?
I'd like it spelled out what the process would be, so I'd know once at what point would I find out that I'm accused, and what my rights are at that point. What kind of evidence is needed against me, maybe. Yeah, just basically some sort of process laid out, so I know that it's not just going to be accused and a whiplash, instinctual kind of action taken. So
Right.
I'm protected until the facts are out.
Which is the
I
type
can
of
be
things,
cleared.
right? Which is the types of things we've seen at college campuses with a lot of accusations where they have, they've just dismissed the people or the athletes before all the facts come out. They just vilify and get rid of them, and then when the facts come out, that's not exactly, they've had problems with that in many college campuses throughout the nation. Okay. Anything else, Lucy, on that?
Not right off, no.
Okay, just cross it. Okay. Okay, for the bystander, those that saw it take
Me.
place. Yeah, what types of things would you like to see if you're called to testify or be involved in the process?
I think I would also like the protection or security of my job because I'm not the victim, so I don't feel like I have as much protection as the victim herself, themselves, or himself. So I feel like protection for my job would be a good one, or gosh, I can't pronounce that word. Anonymity.
Yeah, be able to
Which
do
is
it.
kind of hard in courts, especially if you are like a witness or whatever. So just a security on my job, and then also another thing I saw. I don't know if it's really for a bystander, but more for like the victim themselves, is that the oh gosh, what's his word? I have to go back and read it. Like the punishment or the remedy for the sexual harasser within the company is usually kind of like a slap on the wrist type of thing. It's nothing super serious, and sometimes the victim is made to work once again with the person that harassed them. So making sure that that maybe wouldn't be the case. Whether I would, so something like that.
Yeah. Okay. One thing that neither Mike or Lucy, neither of you mentioned is perhaps as this process goes out, there's a way that we can separate the duties so that you guys don't have to work together, so it doesn't spark any more problems as the process is being played out.
Yeah, that would be good.
Being able to reassign duties within the company. Now, obviously, a small company may not be able to do that with just a very small staff like a large company could, but still being able to separate the accuser and the accused
Yeah.
while the process plays out might be an important thing.
Yeah, I'd agree with that for sure.
Okay.
And I think that's what she was kind of looking for, is just a transfer. But so I guess the duties and transfer would be different in that sense.
No, but like say, having to work around, I mean, if you're accusing somebody of sexual harassment or hostile work environment, having to work around that, both of you knowing what is taking
Yeah.
place, and that
Oh,
just exasperates the problem.
okay, yeah, I understand now. Yeah.
I mean, if you know that you just came out of a meeting where you reported it, and you know that the person you accused of harassment, in 20 minutes they're going into a meeting. Are they going to, give you the stink eye? Are they going to make your life a living hell because of it? I mean, and the company can't police everything. I mean, you just can't. So
No,
being
but you
able
could
to-
not require them to work together, because that
Right.
could be a really bad situation.
And that was the thing that the paper the sexual harassment paper kind of brought up, that a lot of times, that's what I was trying to get to before, that a lot of times the victim is made to work still with the harasser, even
Right.
after filing something. But another quick thing that I saw here was that they can also, if they happen to win, which is if they happen to win the claim, then the victim can receive compensation for the time they weren't at work, or the law, like the attorney fees and etc. So, I mean, it's not always that it happens that they're able to fully get the compensation for the work they either missed or the attorney fees, but I mean, it would be nice if they did.
Yeah. Legal. Haley, as legal counsel, what would you like to see spelled out for this process?
Well, I was kind of looking at it as being outside of the company, I guess, and I guess we're kind of trying to develop a policy, but I definitely like to see a clear policy in place at the company, how the company deals with the situation before it goes to, legal issues. Documentation of, reporting and, as much evidence put together as, possible, ready to go. And I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, as I'm thinking about this whole process, trying to separate people and still get tasks done, just thinking, I'm back, I'm just thinking, man, this is such a complicated process, such a headache, especially for a small company. If you've only got 50 employees or something. I mean, what policy can I put in place so that are there policies that I can put in place so that this minimizes the risk of this stuff ever happening? I mean, can I nip this in the bud so I'm not always, what can I do?
I've actually been in two of these positions before, so not the the harasser. I've been harassed and a bystander, so in a very small company with less than 12 employees. So
I mean, how do you separate those two? I mean, it's difficult.
Well, the guy got fired.
Okay.
Was it a fast process, or was it like a long process to get where?
Oh, it was
The point where he
immediate.
got fired.
There were several witnesses around. The owner even saw it happen, so it was just, okay, bye, get out of here.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's one
Gotcha.
thing the company could do in a small company, is to spell out in the policy what is appropriate and what's not. Because then if they do something that's not, then you're just fired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's very
And
important.
apparently it was not a first offense, so
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, I think like you were saying, like how can you like nip this in the bud if you're having training and you have a clear definition in your policy of what is sexual harassment, maybe include examples that can kind of illustrate what so that they're clear exactly what it is and what it isn't. That way, when things do come up, there's like they already know what's going to happen.
Mhm.
Right. So part of the new hire training or new hire orientation, where they know exactly. Yeah, very wise.
On a
Okay.
humorous note, sorry for just 1 second, there's been something that's floating around the internet right now. It's called the Rock test, and it's about sexual harassment. And it says basically that men should just assume that the woman they're looking at looks like The Rock, and then treat her like you would, The Rock, the actor. And then if you just follow that test, you won't be accused of sexual harassment. So, that
She
wouldn't
looks
quite
like,
work as a policy, but
assume she looks like a rock.
The Rock.
The Rock.
The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, the actor.
Oh, okay. I'm like,
Now it's more funny, right?
a little, yeah. All right.
So anyway,
Got it. Okay.
That's okay, guys. I think that's the policy we need to establish for.
I'll just put a picture of Dwayne right there, and that's it. All right.
Well, you can see that this is like super relevant. Like even there's been all this news about the Harvey Weinstein
Oh yeah.
guy. I mean, this is all in the news just even today.
yeah. When do you believe people? When should they come forward? What should happen when they do come forward? All this stuff. Yeah.
Well, and BYU and BYU Idaho have been dealing with this issue as well, having to revise their policies where people have come forward saying, this has happened in this situation, and then the accuser has faced backlash just from student honor policies. Say, well, if you weren't out late or if you wouldn't have done this, then it wouldn't happen. So they're having to face this as well.
Yeah, putting some immunity in when people are
Correct.
stepping forward.
So, okay. All right. Okay. So, just wrapping up the Lone Star case. Have you guys read yet what happened in that instance?
Nope, it's only in your prep.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I
So,
haven't seen anything.
so when Jack, it just says when Jack called the council, he forgot about caller ID, and I wondered about this as well. I'm like, well, can't she just look at the company would be able to look at the phone and say it came from this extension, but unless he used a burner phone. But anyway, so he called from his desk. The caller ID, the lawyer used that to figure out who he was talking about specifically. She contacted Lone Star Equal Employment Office. They launched a formal investigation. Now, they tried really hard to get Mrs. Martinez to cooperate. Obviously, well, not obviously, but anyways, French denied all accusations, and he denied all the charges, claiming that, which happens many times, claiming that she had made up the story to protect herself from the pending layoffs. So, DaCosta, he was asked for evidence, but he didn't have any other than the conversation. Mrs. Martinez's husband found out what was going on, and he took it out on her. Unfortunately, it says he beat up Julia, and she was forced to quit. French, the accused, he survived the investigation with just abused reputation. He blamed everything on DaCosta for calling corporate counsel. There was so much animosity between DaCosta and French that DaCosta left the company after 3 months. Okay.
Wow.
So the question is, what was their sexual harassment policy? Did they have one? Did Jack know about it? And how could things have improved as far as the policies go to prevent what happened?
Well, we don't know if they have a policy. I don't think. I mean, other than you have to report it. That was all we
Well,
knew.
yeah, that seems kind of like their policy, but was he aware of it? No.
Yeah, if he was, he did. I mean, if there was, it didn't appear that he knew anything about it.
So just having a policy and him knowing about it would have improved the situation, perhaps. Maybe he would have known to, watch the situation and gather some evidence, or to support her for a little bit, or
A
to
lot
not
of
call from your
things,
desk and try to make anonymous calls.
a lot of what I noticed was that on the sexual harassment paper or whatever, it said that a lot of times the what is it called? The accuser ends up not winning in the courts or in the cases or investigations that they have because of either lack of evidence, and that is basically like a reasonable person has to, what's it called? Think that they are being harassed, if that makes sense. I don't know if that made sense. But there's that, and there's also the fact that evidence. So I feel like they was just kind of like hearsay, and then Julie didn't want to pursue it further because her husband's obviously like hitting her and abusing her, and she's getting that from the workplace. So she saw the easy solution was just to quit instead of trying to pursue it further within the workplace. But I can understand why she didn't as well. So it comes down to basically how far you want to pursue it, I guess, and then also the lack of evidence was a hard one. They didn't really have much, and she didn't really want to participate. And it's pretty hard to do that to file and actually win a case when the person that's being victimized does not want to participate in it.
Right. Willingness to participate in pursuing this for the victim. If there had been a clear, laid out policy in writing that Jack could refer to, he could, when he first called her in her office and said, "Hey, I overheard the conversation, and here exactly what's going to happen." He pulls it out, or he shows her and says, "Okay, these are exactly the steps we need to go through, and these are these are your protections.
Yeah.
This is what's going to happen. This protects you from this. This is what." I mean, if it was all clearly spelled out, then this might have been a little bit different, so that they could follow it step by step, check mark everything off, make sure everything's in line, rather than what happened.
And I think her cooperation is quite important in the situation too. If she's not willing to cooperate and essentially press charges for it, then is there really need for further investigation?
Right. And based upon what little we know of her home life, that's probably a product of that.
Well, yeah, and her life is going to get flipped up completely upside down as soon as she steps forward and says, "Yes, I'll speak up."
Right.
I mean, it got flipped upside down anyway because somebody else, investigated. But I can understand why she doesn't want to come forward and verify these things because there is no evidence other than her word. He's pretty smart that he never did this in front of other people. People who do this are not very smart, but they're not dumb. So there's not evidence lying around to back her up, which becomes a problem in any of these policies or procedures.
Yeah, this whole thing just makes me sick. I hate this stuff.
Yep.
Okay.
But you can't ignore it.
No, absolutely not. But it makes me sad. So, and I've seen it in real life too. I've been there, and it just sucks. So, I went through this, and this wasn't a sexual harassment in the workplace policy, but just I used to program cell phones for people and companies, and I got caught up because I saw a phone. This was years ago, but a phone I was working with had lots of inappropriate young material on it, and so I took it to the police immediately and got caught up in that. And what a horrible situation. I mean, it was the right thing to do, but it didn't make it easy. But luckily he got jailed and then deported, so. Horrible. Okay. Last couple questions. What's the most important thing you learned about sexual harassment from this case?
The importance of evidence and cooperation between everyone, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Also, you might just have to do the harder right instead of the easier wrong, instead of letting it just blow away. You need to report it and get her taken care of.
Another thing, well, for me at least, was to either make sure that the company I'm either going to be running or I'm going to be working under has clear rules regarding sexual harassment or any other the topics we covered so far. Make sure that they are clear and they are. I know exactly what's going to happen, or at least have them to where I don't know the victim is able to have like either transfer out for a little bit and not work with the harasser and just little stuff that technically wouldn't matter until you're the person like in that position.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. The most important thing I learned today is about making sure the policy is really spelled out for the
Yeah.
company so that it's clear and not on a case by case basis so much.
Yeah, I think it's important both if you plan on being an owner or if you're a worker, either way, to make sure your policy is clear.
Yeah. This goes back to when we were doing the different roles. And Haley, you were talking about legal. One of the important things in this that I see is whether it's legal counsel or the HR department, make sure that they're completely separate from any other operations in the company, so that that person that's being reported to, it's completely separate, and the accuser and the accused don't have to report to. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's not in a chain of command. This has to be reported to. Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has to be completely separate. It's not the boss. It's not the manager. It's someone separate. Okay. Anything else that we haven't discussed here that we need to discuss? We've missed. Okay. It just asks to rate the quality of today's discussion from 0 to 10.
8, 9.
14.
Right.
Sorry, not really.
Yeah, an 8. It's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
8 sounds good.
All right. As a discussion leader, what did we do that you guys liked? Anything?
What do you mean as a discussion leader? Like you?
Yes, as a discussion leader, what did I do that you liked?
I liked that you kept the conversation moving fairly well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't slow down too
appreciated
much
that
at any
too.
one point.
That's true. And when it came to assigning roles, it was just quick and wasn't like, who wants to be this? It was just like, you're this.
Okay.
Yeah, everyone seemed to keep on. Well, I don't know. Maybe it was just this discussion. Everybody seemed to kind of have input to say this week. So
Yeah.
It was nice because it was a shorter case, so you could read it and
yeah.
Yeah. When I was reading these cases and sexual harassment policy and different things this week for this, I was thinking of lots of different conference talks or people I know that say that, like I have a neighbor who he's retired now, but he was an airline pilot, and he made it a policy never ever to be alone, never to go to lunch with another female employee. Never really he really tried to never be alone in a situation that could be construed as iffy at all. and the importance of that.
Oh, see, I actually have a problem with that. I think
you?
you're welcome to do that if that's your personal policy. But it actually, I would rather somebody see me as a person and not avoid me as an employee, or to have conversations or a work lunch or something like that. I think it really limits my opportunities in the office if somebody's not willing to close the door and have a meeting with me. You know what I mean? So I think that's why I was laughing about the rock test, because if you would just treat the person as a person, I mean, obviously you need to protect yourself in certain situations and pay attention to your gut feelings and the spirit, but I have a problem with that.
So the whole we're all the same. The first paradigm in last week's
The colorblind.
being colorblind, being gender blind.
Well, how about that? Being brave
Yeah.
enough to see that we're different, but not avoiding tough decisions and tough conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I can appreciate that. Okay. All
Sorry,
right.
I didn't mean to
and-
jump on that. It's just one of my pet
No.
peeves.
No, please. Okay, thank you. So the last question is, what could I do better next time as a discussion leader?
Bring cake.
Yeah.
I could
Bring
figure
donuts
out
and
how
hot
to.
chocolate. I do have a question. Is the link sent out or not? Because I was waiting since like 7:50 something, and I was like, are they not meeting or what's going on? And then I finally was like, maybe I should send a chat. So I don't know. Last week I got a link in my email, and that was really helpful because as soon as I turned on my laptop, I saw it in my email and I just clicked in.
Okay.
But this time I had no idea. I even opened my Google Hangouts and was kind of waiting for like a ring for the.
We have a group chat going on. He posted a link in our group chat.
Really?
Yeah.
Am
Yeah,
I?
I don't
says
think
you're
Moore's ever
included
been
in
in the
the
group
chat too.
Hold on, because I was on it and then I was waiting for the link to pop up and didn't pop up until I asked for it. So that's why I was like,
It looks like you're
No,
in
you-
a different chat group.
You were
than-
joining. Yeah, you were chatting in one of our last week's call. That's not the same chat group
Okay.
that we are normally in.
So there's a
Gotcha.
chat group that's called Human Resources that we're in. That's the one we're using to converse with each other.
Can you guys add me to that?
You are added to
you
it.
are
I
in it.
am.
Again.
Yeah. Here, I'll just send a little message in it.
Okay.
Did that come through on your end?
No, I only have the ongoing call and then the link that was sent to me, the one where I chatted into.
Okay.
One thing I wish you could do with these with Hangouts is to send a message to an individual person within that.
Okay, but you saw the last one. So if I include a link to our normal Hangout in that, maybe you'll be able to see it.
Yes. Okay, here it goes.
There. And Michael, I haven't seen you in the group Hangout. Are you in
Yay,
that?
finally. Okay, I'm in it.
I don't think so. Oh, I don't know where I'm at now.
Okay, I'm pasting it into
I'll
the
just-
chat for this call. So if you go to that other Hangout later, that's where we talk between video calls.
Oh, okay.
It's
There you
actually
are.
titled Human Resource Group 2.
Human Resource Group 2.
It's
Where-
a titled chat.
Oh, no.
Okay.
So, Amor, did you able to follow that link?
I did, but every time I go
Yeah.
back to my normal.
You can delete that other chat.
This thing is, as soon as I exit the human resource chat, I can't. It doesn't even show up in my chats anymore. Maybe I should send something in here.
There you go.
You see that.
Saved. All right. Well, no complaints for the leader then. I'm good.
All right.
Technical difficulties. They always happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Amor, you need to go back into the doc and sign up to double up on one of the weeks to do the you need to have 2 weeks that you do the leader writing assignment.
Gotcha.
So you need to sign up for a second week, which is what Sarah and I already did.
Do I double up with somebody else on it? Because I was looking through it yesterday.
Yeah.
And I saw that everybody else had 2 except me and I think somebody else.
The